Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Sunday School Dropouts podcast. We are so excited to have you with us here today and really excited about the guest that you're going to get to hear us talk with
hmm
today as well.
Yes, I'm excited too. So before we get into it, Andrew, I'm curious to know your church growing up or maybe even into your adulthood, what was kind of the level of expectation or what is the time and effort that you gave to the church? Like the work, the effort that you gave or was expected to give from the church you went to.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, it's always definitely pushed to, yeah, I mean, to volunteer, to do things.
hmm
I mean, like whether that be like, for example, like setting up and taking down tables before and after
hmm
potluck, for example, or I mean, there's just so many things. The
hmm
thing that the parts that I got kind of caught up in, and this was probably young adulthood, I guess, that I was really doing this was leading like small group studies. And of course, Adventism loves like their prophetic stuff. So the books of like Daniel and Revelation, like I mean,
hmm
I did a lot of those small group studies. I mean, gosh, it's been over a decade, and I could still probably do a pretty damn good study of the book of Daniel or the book of Revelation or whatever. And yeah, so stuff like that. And then, of course, all of it was unpaid and,
hmm
whatever. But yeah, definitely. And in others, I mean, I probably didn't get into it as much as some people did, but like I definitely knew a lot of folks who were doing like different ministries, of course, is
hmm
what they were called,
hmm
ministries. And it was all about
hmm
ministry. And yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the expectation. Yeah. I think back
Hmm.
to my church days and I'm just like the kind of I was going to say invitation, but it wasn't really invitational. Kind of the expectation of like continuously giving more time, more energy, more effort, more resource, whatever that looked like. It was always there. Like there was always need for more people to serve and to give their time. And then I feel like the expectation was like the more you served, the more you were expected to serve. So, I mean, it was like, I was already working in the youth group and the college young adult ministry and the worship team. And then it was like, oh, hey, we're planning this event. Can you be on this committee and that committee? And it was like, I'm doing like 9 billion things all the time. My entire life was around serving to the point that when I was in my internship, so unpaid internship with my master's degree, which we all have to do, like starting to see clients or whatever, I had two part-time jobs and then I had like so many hours of ministry that I was doing on top of it, like behind the scenes stuff, whatever. So I had that, two part-time jobs, my school classes and my internship. And instead of like I was just maxed, like completely maxed with my time and energy. And instead of like giving up ministry stuff, I gave up one of my paid jobs, eventually both of my paid jobs, so that I could take on more responsibilities at the church and just live off of my student loans. Which now I'm just like, I am still paying the price for that, of
Yeah.
like giving more and more, even at the expense of my own well being. So, yeah, this idea of like, working hard for God is
Yeah.
very prevalent.
Yeah. Well, it's like the idea that you
hmm
can like, as long as you're, working for God and putting that type serving service and ministry, putting that first, it's like somehow that's supposed to excuse all of these other poor
Yeah,
decisions and the
right.
natural consequences that might come along with those. Like, well, just have faith
hmm
and stay
hmm
focused on God and that work. And, like whether it's going hundreds of thousands in a debt for a Christian Bible college degree
Right.
or quitting
hmm
jobs and living off of student loans
hmm
to better serve the church. It's just like
hmm
all of these things that are like aren't advisable decisions. And yet we were
Yeah,
told like to not do it is like a lack of faith or
right.
I don't know.
hmm
Yeah.
Yeah,
That stuff
yeah.
runs deep.
Yeah. Well, if you guys haven't guessed it already, this is what we're talking about in our episode today. I'm really excited. We've got Janice Lagata with us. If you haven't already listened to our summer VBS episode from June of 2024, we talked about Paul, the OG grifter. Janice was a part of that. She's joining us today, and we're talking about all things working hard for God and the expectations and the way that that takes a toll on us, the way that it implements control and the shame that comes with it and how we see that even after having left religion in the deconstruction spaces, social media, all of that fun stuff. Just, really light, easy topics. But it actually was a really good conversation.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was really, really good.
Awesome. Well, as usual, we do recognize that some of the topics that we discuss in any episode can bring up feelings, emotions, and triggers that might require more processing or be too much to handle right now. So please always feel free to skip any episode or parts of episodes and come back if and when you're ready. Our goal is to help you trust your own body and lived experiences so you can take what you need and leave what you don't. Well, before we get into our interview, I think we should have some flannel graph story time. So, Andrew, what have you been reading, listening to, watching, that is worth learning about?
Yeah, so I think most people who know me know that I like reading, writing, just all of that. So recently I got getting back into Shakespeare, believe it or not.
Ooh,
And so I
very
ordered,
nice.
I actually got a boxed set of, not the complete works, because that's a lot, but I guess the, quote, greatest works. I mean, I guess that's a little subjective, the greatest works of Shakespeare. And the funny thing is I got them, actually, hold on, I'm going to go grab them. They're just right over
I
this
love
way.
it.
The funny thing is that, so you can see them here, but also,
Yes.
do you see how tiny
Ooh,
they are? Like how
they're
big?
so tiny.
I saw the picture when I ordered them, and I was expecting them to be like trade paperbacks, like,
Yeah.
bigger. And instead, they're like tiny, like kind of like the size of like some of those little religious tracts that we used to pass out back in the day.
Oh my gosh. Do you have
And
to
so
read, use
here's
binoculars or
here's
something or
Macbeth.
magnifying glass? Oh my
Here's my
gosh.
hand. The font is actually a normal sized font, like a
Okay.
12 point standard font, whatever.
Not
But
bad.
yeah, I could literally like fit
You could
several of
put
these
it
in my
in your
pockets.
back pocket.
I could put these in my pants pocket, and I walk around with whip out a random Macbeth or Othello or
Yeah.
something. So
You should
yeah.
definitely do that. Yeah, definitely try it and see how that goes for you.
I mean, I feel like it's less off-putting than pulling out a great controversy or Steps to Christ. It's two,
True.
tried and true
True.
Adventist tomes that
This
we
is
like to
true.
pass out. So
Yes,
yeah.
this is true. I like that.
So
Okay.
that is
Yeah.
one of several things that I am reading lately, and I just
Okay.
thought that was funny because I was not expecting this box
Yeah.
set to be pocket-sized.
Yeah. Well, don't be ashamed if you have to get some extra reader magnification glasses, because it's a real thing. You're getting older and this is what we do. So, yeah. Yeah. I really took the information to heart from our last episode with Joe Lumen, and I went and bought a bunch of books. And now, and as you were talking about your Shakespeare books, I was like, "Ooh, I also have these other books." So I'll wait for a second to get to that. But I did start reading some books, listening to some podcasts, about all the things that Joe was talking about. I took her recommendations and then kind of just, went from there because, you listen to one podcast episode and then they've got this guest on and that guest on and all those things. So I've been listening to some good podcasts, but I started reading the book, and this was actually not somebody that Joe mentioned, but somebody that was on a podcast that Joe mentioned. And it's a financial therapist. This is a woman who is actually a licensed professional counselor, but she specializes in finances and money around money messages and things like that. Her name is Asia Evans. Her book is called Feel Good Finance: Untangle Your Relationship with Money for Better Mental, Emotional, and Financial Well-Being. Because her whole message is that, finances is it's only a little bit about money. So much of it is about the emotional pieces around it. What did we learn? How, what happens in our body as we are thinking about money, spending money, things like that. And so I've really appreciated it. I'm about halfway through her book at this point, and she's just she's doing really incredible work. And so I have a couple other books that I'm kind of listening through and, as it pertains to finances, but that one in particular, I've really, really liked, and highly recommend it. Highly recommend following her. But then the other thing, as you were talking about Shakespeare, I was like, oh, this fits. So I started kind of, we keep hearing about all the banned books, and books that are about to be banned and things like that. And all of a sudden I was like, I think I need to buy like all of these banned books and books that we will maybe potentially not have access to in the next 5 years, maybe even in the next year. So I bought like 30 banned books that are
Dang.
for 30 of the books that are on the banned books list. And I bought them all from like the, used bookstores and things like that. So I've actually been shocked at how much money I have not had to spend on them because they're all, used or already been enjoyed. That's the bookstore I go to, A Books, which stands for already been enjoyed books. So I've been doing that, and I'm waiting for them to come in the mail. But I feel like it's, there's just so many good books and maybe not even good of like, oh, I love everything they say, but books that are important when it comes to like free speech and being able to have, ideas out there and things like that. And I just kept thinking, like, I want my nieces and nephews, if they want someday, to have access to these books. And so I'm going to be the aunt that's like, here you go, read The Color Purple or, whatever. And they'll be able to do that. So, yeah.
Oh, I love that.
I've been
I
doing
love that.
too.
Yeah, it's not, and it's like, I've even said, like what you're saying, it's not even about agreeing or disagreeing. It's just about but being able to engage it with the ideas.
Yes.
I mean, and if you don't agree with it, fair, but at least
totally fine.
you've looked at it with curiosity rather than banning it or burning it or whatever,
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
I love that.
absolutely. Absolutely. Sorry, I'm laughing at my dog right now. She jumped up on my chair, on my desk chair, and there's like it's sitting on top, like those like plastic mats or whatever that you like have.
Yeah.
And so she's scared to jump on top of that, so she was just over there whining. Sorry, that has nothing to do with our books conversation, but it was happening while this was happening. So she just jumped far enough out, and so she's sitting by me. Anyways, but highly recommend, for people who are wanting used books, and it doesn't even just have to be for banned books, Abe Books, ABE, already been enjoyed books.com. And they have everything on there. So even like when I do all my purity culture research and buy all the purity culture books again, you better believe I am not going to Amazon and supporting them that way. I am going and getting them from a used bookstore. So that's my secret.
I'm looking up Abe Books now, or we're jotting it down for future reference. Sounds good.
Highly, highly recommend. So I mean, between your pocket-sized Shakespeare, all of my Abe books, and we got a full library going. So
I know.
I love it.
We do.
Welcome, Janice, to another episode of Sunday School Dropouts. It's so good to have you back again.
It's great to be here, and it's always a good time to be a Sunday School Dropout.
Always. I know. We need shirts. We need to make some shirts.
Honestly, why don't we have merch yet?
I know. Well, okay. I've thought about it.
Failing at capitalism. Look at you.
I have to be better. I have to be better.
We really suck as grifters, Laura.
I know. Oh,
2 years of this, 2 seasons of this, and we haven't even done merch yet.
I've got to work on my cult leader tactics. Like, I'm really failing.
It's like you learned nothing.
I know. I have learned nothing. It has not prepared me well enough. So I will go back to church this weekend and report. Well, the last time you were here, we were doing our VBS episodes, talked all about Paul, the original grifter, the OG grifter. But we didn't get to hear a lot of your story. So we're talking today about, work ethic, hard work, capitalism, reform theology, probably Hillsong, I would guess, all that stuff. But I think it would be good for people to know just a little bit, however much you want to share, of your own experience inside evangelicalism, and maybe, however much you want to share about Hillsong specific, your time there, what you did.
Okay, so I'll give the clip notes of of my entire life.
Yes.
So, I mean, born and raised in evangelicalism. Obviously didn't know that's what it was at the time. But, I'm from California and back in California now. So I was born in L.A., grew up for the first couple of years in Orange County. And my mom was part of the church that my grandma was going to. Okay. So I was part of that church till I was like 5, and then we moved out to the Inland Empire, and then we joined a church there, and then I was in that church from like 5 till I left for Hillsong.
Wow.
So I grew up in a very charismatic Pentecostal So, speaking in tongues, led by the Holy Spirit. Church starts at 9. What time it ends?
Who knows?
Only God knows, right?
Does it
So,
end?
Does it end?
Yeah, we
Does
don't
it?
know.
We don't know. So very, very steeped in that. Again, when you're in something, you don't really know. You don't know what you're a part of kind of until you get out of it and, see it from the outside. So, like, I grew up with a Black woman pastor primarily.
Awesome.
Like, there were a couple originally, then the Baal pastor cheated with the church secretary, tale as old as time.
Always,
So the
yeah.
church split. So to his credit, like, he did do this series before he left about like why women can be in leadership and why he is, turning this church over to his now ex-wife. And so that maybe I was like 12 or 13 at that point. So from then on, like, it was just her. And so, like, on the surface, like, it's always weird to kind of try to label myself like how I grew up, because you say, oh, Black woman pastor, so you grew up in the Black church. No, I did not, because the theology was extremely white. And like, now knowing, oh, we're non-denominational, but we were a non-denominational church because they didn't want to pay the fees to be associated, right? But it actually came out of the AOG. And so, the spiritual forefathers there were the Kenneth Copelands and the Kenneth Hagin, like all these old white men. So those would have been my, spiritual grandparents. So again, blackface, but very white theology.
Yeah,
and so
that makes sense.
Grew up there, was a part of the little worship team there, and then, went through, my parents were part of the thing where we don't listen to secular music. So, grew up very steeped in CCM, and Christian music was also, extremely white.
Very white.
And then,
wait, but who was your go-to groups? Like, who did you listen to? Because there's so many good ones.
Early on, and to this day still, right? Like, Amy Grant was my very first
There we go. Yeah.
music person at all in general. So, like, age to age, like, I to this day can still probably sing every song on that from, like, note for note. Like, once it was getting into, my own music and whatever, like DC Talk.
So good.
And then as I got older and started getting into what I would end up being into kind of in the real world. So then it was Jennifer Knapp and Nicole Nordman and, the singer-songwriter chicks of Christian music.
Yeah.
So that was, that was what I loved. And then, in the late 90s, there was, integrity music and like, Hosanna, worship.
Yeah.
So it was like Ron Canoli, right? And then Ron Canoli did an album or was on an album like with Darlene Check. And that was how Hillsong kind of breached the American music market.
Shout to the
once
Lord.
I heard, Shout to the Lord, that album, and our church started using it. And so then I was Hillsong all the way. Like, these are the people doing worship now.
Wow. Yeah.
They're doing it, better than anyone. And so in the early 2000s, I remember looking to see if they like did any conferences or anything in the States, right? Putting these evil vibes out here. I wished all this evil on all of us, because at that time they didn't. They were like, Darlene Check was going to, like, remember Saddleback was a big deal.
Oh, yeah.
Purpose Driven Life.
Rick
and
Warren.
They had a worship conference, and so I remember going to see her at one of those.
Wow.
But in, like, doing my research on Darlene Check and trying to figure out, like, is Hillsong doing anything in the States, I ran across Hillsong College, the existence of Hillsong College. And I remember being like, oh, like, that sounds cool. And at that point, like, I had graduated from high school and went through a couple of years where I would go to college for a while and then get bored. So then I would go to work and then get bored with that and then go back to college. So when I like found out about Hillsong College, I was in one of my work phases and I was like, you know what, maybe I'll go back to school. And maybe this is, this is what I'll do. So yeah, brought it before, my mom and my pastor and, got that approval. So the idea was, like, these are praise and worship people. They're doing it better than anyone. So yeah, go there for a year, pick up whatever skills, and then like the plan was, then I'll just come back to California to this church, and live and die here. Like that's what my life is gonna be.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in 2005, so crazy, like 20 years. So
Yeah.
Friday, Andrew's birthday, is the anniversary of when I flew out and left for Australia.
Wow.
So yeah, got to Australia, and then within maybe probably a couple of weeks, but definitely like a couple of months, I was like, oh, like I can never go back to my old church and to California, because I can't be in California and not be at my old church. So I just know I can't go back. And it was just like, I mean, it was just simple things. Like Hillsong did really well with just, having a set time. You're coming in at this time and you're going to get out at this time. You know how the service is going to go.
Yeah.
Like you're going to have the 20 minutes of praise and worship. Like, what's going to happen. There was just something about that that's very marketable, that's very appealing.
Yeah.
And also like it was just a younger crowd. Like these are younger people, and it just seemed better at kind of balancing that day to day. Like your life on Sunday isn't as different from your life on Monday now. And part of that was like just being in that Hillsong bubble. So like moving from one cult to another, and Hillsong, I was at the Sydney campus, and that campus, especially because it was in a suburb. And so anyone coming from anywhere else to come to this college, and most of the people there like were international students, this is all you know of this world. So of course you're really only at the church or around it, and you're only with other church people. And so like we know at the time, like, oh, Hillsong is irritating, and Hillsong students are irritating to, the normals around here. But, at that time it was just because, oh, they're not Christian. They're not in the spirit. Like they don't understand. But no, looking at it now, you're like, no, you were clearly in a cult and just annoying. But yeah, so ended up staying there for 4.5 years. Probably would have stayed longer, except for, visa issues. And they're like, you're not doing anything real. Get out of here. So had to move back to the States. Like I said, I knew I couldn't go back to California. I had a friend that I had met who was from New York, had visited New York the year before. I was like, oh, I like that. So ended up moving to New York. Didn't know Hillsong was coming to New York, but
Yeah.
they did end up. I moved back in October of 2009, and yeah, in February of 2010, they made the announcement, that Hillsong was going to be planting their first American church, and it's in New York. And so here we go, for such a time as this. Look at God, here
God
we are.
Really, worked in some mysterious ways there.
Yeah, and that was something that I had prayed for.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, obviously. So day one, I was part of the launch group. Like I was in it to win it.
Yeah.
And so I had gone to Hillsong College with aspirations of becoming a better worship leader. And Hillsong pretty quickly, beat that out of me, because, I wasn't the look, just so many reasons, but I was never going to make it there and didn't. And so ended up being part of the stage managing team there. And so then when Hillsong New York started, also like auditioned to be part of the worship team. Also what God needs you to do is to lead this stage managing team. So for the first few years I was over that. And then through that, being backstage, being there constantly, that was how I got to know Carl Lentz. I was one of the people he would see consistently on the person, handing him his Bible and his water bottle and, cracking jokes before he's going on stage or whatever. So we just had that connection. So he just liked me. So from that, we were friends. And, as Hillsong New York was growing, getting into, the 2015, 2016 and that election, and everything that was happening with that and Black Lives Matter and all of that, and Carl Lentz rising to prominence, being known as, "Oh, this is the pastor who will say Black Lives Matter," and so like he built a lot of his public platform and what he got known for. He was known for being friends with celebrities, but also he was friends with celebrities, right? Because he's the cool pastor,
Right.
because he is, the modern whatever. And again, he's the guy saying Black Lives Matter. So like his church is open and great and whatever. And it wasn't.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, you're saying these things, but your platform, your staff is extremely white, extremely male, extremely just all the usual things. And so, he and I would have those conversations. So I became just kind of his black whisperer, right? And so we'd be, having these conversations and having meetings and talking about change and, whatever. But in the end, it was all just spin and all just trying to appease people and just keep people quiet, keep people waiting, keep them hoping. So from that, and just just being a black woman in that space, eventually like it just got to the point where I was like, oh, like this is not healthy for me. At least at work, at like out in the world, there are HR departments, there are governmental like there are things like you can't have a company that has like this kind of hiring practices. Like there are people who will step in and be like, this doesn't look right, you can't do that. And that's just not the way it is in church.
Yeah.
And so like it just got to the point where I was like, wait, if I have to fight all these battles out in the real world, and then I'm coming into this place that is supposed to be better, is supposed to be some kind of sanctuary, and I'm fighting these same battles, and I don't even have, again, like an HR department or the government to say you can't, like there's no recourse here. Yeah, this is not good for me, so I need to go. So I left Hillsong in 2017. Joined another little church plant that was on the surface doing better. It's like, oh, like this is a black male pastor, and he has women in leadership, from jump, and women, speaking and whatever. So was there for about a year and a half, and then there was a whole thing that happened where basically, oh yeah, they're doing great as far as race and as far as women, but now they brought in some worship leaders who are culling the team of queer people. And I know there are queer people on this team. And like the pastor just did not, he was, fine with it. So I was like, well, I can't be part of this. And something about that, I was like, you know what? I've been in church all my life, and I don't know, but I feel like I probably know enough to not need some random man's thought of the week every Sunday. So I was like, so I'm going to leave this church, and I'm not going to look for a new one.
Yeah.
And at that point, it wasn't even anything against God. It wasn't like, it was just, I just don't want to go to church anymore. But, evangelicalism will not let you just think things without trying to argue you down or fight you. So you have to know apologetics. You have to have your reasons for things.
Yeah.
So I had to go do my research just to have my reasons for why I don't think I need this anymore. And then the more I started reading, the more I started learning, the more I started exploring, I was like, oh, yeah, I don't think I like any of this. And I don't think I actually believe most of this anymore. So yeah, so I looking back now, I can see I had questions the whole time, and this was never going to end well for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was how I was raised in this thing, know everything about it. And now, take great joy in using all this otherwise useless information that I have to try and tear down this thing that tore me down all my life. So.
Well, I mean, I think you have to. I mean, you have to. It has to be from those of us who know how the system works, right? Like to have outsiders come in. I work with clients where they're like, no, I have to be the one to like step forward now that I'm out of it and take these things down, because the tactics that are used in these systems to keep them propped up and to keep them, untouchable, like, yeah, only the people on the inside know.
Yeah. Yeah. So like I totally believe, right, in in the darkest timeline kind of alternate story way. I'm like, no, we are actually have turned out to be exactly who we were raised to be.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
We were raised to make the world better, to use these spiritual principles to, do whatever. And yeah, now you gave me all these tools, all these weapons, all these powers. Unfortunately, I have to use them against you now because
that's literally what you taught me to do also. Yeah. Sorry. For such a time as this. Yeah.
for such a time as this. I love
Wow.
it.
Yeah, no, I'm curious. Actually, on that note, I'm curious too. Like with Hillsong, or even the church that you grew up in California. What were some of the, when it comes to work ethic and expected roles in these spaces? What were some of the messages that were given to you? Especially in light of it being oftentimes male dominated spaces and white dominated spaces, and I'm curious what that was like.
Yeah, I was just thinking about kind of life and expectations this morning, and the phase of evangelicalism I grew up in, it was different. Coming up in the purity culture, that hard pocket of it, there weren't a lot of expectations for women, right? Other than
Yeah.
getting married. That is what you're aiming for. And I feel like the big hope that my pastor, that my mom, we just want to make sure these girls are getting married and as much as possible for them to be virgins when that happens. Right? Yeah. And again, you don't know what you're part of. You're a kid, you don't understand that your parents are people and that they have they had lives and they have issues and they have, whatever. And so now looking back and be oh, all of you people were obsessed with sex and what people were and weren't doing because y'all were out there in them streets.
Yeah.
Y'all live lives. You guys, you chose this based on things that you felt bad about or whatever you were dealing with or whatever. And then you put all of this on us.
Yeah.
And we grew up thinking this stuff was real. Thinking this really works. And if I follow these rules, then my life will be great and all of these things, will come to me. And so the work ethic, I think none of it had anything to do with actual skills or actual life. And all of it was just the work you are doing on yourself all the time to be a rule follower, right? Not even to be a good person, not to be it is just to follow these rules the best so that your life can be the best. And then, me as your mom, me as your pastor or whatever, I can kind of brag about that. Right. And that can be a check in my column. Look, train up a child in the way they will go, when they're old, they will not depart from it. That has nothing to do with me. That's all about you. You guys are trying to hit these marks and to have these collections of, perfect people who are following the rules to prove that this thing works. But the problem is it doesn't work. And so what do you do then? Because I think, if it's a work ethic, kind of what I picked up was that I don't have a testimony, right? And so I'm not really sure what my place in this is, because everyone who's coming through, all these speakers, all the people who are rising in evangelicalism, these are people with testimonies. These are people who God took me out of this and I was doing this and this and this and now I'm not, and that's how you can tell God has a plan for someone. The devil's really trying to get them. And I'm well, why is the devil not trying to get me? There's no, I don't have a story, so there must be nothing. I don't really matter in this system. So it was just this weird, I don't know what that work ethic is, right? Because it's okay, I'm actually following these rules again. I actually believe this and none of it is working for me. And so again, had questions the whole time. None of that really made sense, but for a long time, doing the work was just trying harder. and like sacrificing more and, you know, trying to get to like the nitty gritty. If this isn't working for me, on the surface, I'm doing all the right things and not doing all the right things, right? But I'm not getting the things I'm supposed to be. So it must be something even deeper in me. So I've got to go even more granular, be even harder on myself, meaner to myself, and yeah, figure out what is wrong with me.
Thank you for sharing that. I really resonate with that because I remember feeling that shame of like, I don't have a testimony, right? Like, you know, I don't have the impressive story and how that actually really is what can control you then is like, yeah, I have to then work harder. I have to sanctify myself more, you know, make myself more, you know, slave to Christ so that I can figure out what's going on in me so that I can have this miraculous work done within me, which just like really fuels not only control, but like just, I mean, such a grueling pace of living. Like it's unrelenting. You just have to keep giving more and more and more and losing yourself out at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, like I appreciate so much like recently, you know, you've been talking a lot about purity culture and like calling it what it is. Like for a long time, I think we were in this phase where we're like, I don't know, it didn't work for me.
Yeah.
But maybe it's okay. Maybe it does work for someone. And like to just look at the thing now, but no, it's abuse. Full stop. Like it just is. And some people don't get hurt as much, but it's a net negative. Like it's not, it should not be. So like that, yeah, like it just does damage. Like either way that it goes. Because again, like, you know, sexuality is such a part of all of us.
Yeah.
And even like, I was joking with a friend the other day, like I've been using Chat GPT to help write some stuff. So I had it like, you know, oh, write a bio for me, whatever. And it said something about, oh, like, you know, and she's really passionate about like, well, as a black creative, as a black woman, as a queer person, as whatever. And I was like, Chat GPT, why do you keep thinking I'm queer? Like, like I'm not. But like, I don't like, it's fine. Like,
Sure.
yes, I'm an ally, whatever. And Chat was like, oh, sorry, like you mentioned being evangelical, like something like whatever. But I was like, no, and I do talk about struggling with bisexuality, but I'm like, because it's not, when we hear that, we think it just has to do with being queer. And I'm like, no, I think purity culture makes everybody struggle with their sexuality. Like I struggle with my sexuality just because I have one.
Yes.
And purity culture said no. And so like even, again, like it cuts both ways. Like it does damage both ways. Because in shutting all of that down, like you can't just shut that part of your life down and have nothing else be affected. And so like so much of coming back to yourself, trying to figure all of that out, right? You have all this shame and then you have shame for stuff you haven't done, right? And then you have shame because then you're comparing yourself because, everybody else has hit these milestones or done these, you know, whatever. You're like, and I haven't. And then that just adds even more pressure and even more like, again, like all these things that we don't talk about, right? Like I haven't seen that book, right? We've got the book for all the people who are in purity culture, but we're still doing this stuff and, you know, have to struggle with that. But I'm like, there's a whole other subset of women who don't speak up because there's still shame attached to like all the experience we don't have or we haven't done and how late we got into it and how like difficult that is to try to play catch up and, you know, whatever. And so, again, abuse and net negative.
Yeah. Wow. I'm curious to know, like, when you think about, like, this is the foundation that you're coming from, and then you land at a church like Hillsong, and they're really, like, gassing you up to be like, you get to serve for free for many hours behind the scenes. And I wonder, can you just, like, kind of share a little bit about just your thoughts with that, wherever you want to take it, of, like, I'm already coming out of this environment where I'm super steeped in shame, all the, controlled by that. And now I'm serving at this church that's demanding this from me. And I have to keep working harder and harder. Like that's a lot. I think it's a familiar story, but I think, I'd be curious to hear your thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was, one of the taglines. We don't have to do this. We get to do this.
Yay.
And again, right, it's a cult. So you're in a cult. These are your friends. These are the only people you really hang around with. And so like there is that positive aspect of like Stockholm syndrome, right? Like
Right. Yeah.
we have to be here, and there are genuine connections being made, right? Like some of my best friends to this day are people that I met at Hillsong.
Yeah.
And so you are forming real connections with real people. And so there is a part of it where we're like, okay, like this is what me and my friends do when we get together. So I don't always mind
Right.
getting up at dawn, to go and do this thing. And then on the days when you don't want to do it, or, when your friends start leaving, right? When it gets to be too much and they start going, then again, right, that's when you either start thinking and being like, all right, let me lean into while they're leaving and let me explore this and let me see what happens. Or you just lean further into, all right, it's getting hard, right? But I'm being tested. And so I just have to knuckle down, go harder. Again, we're getting more granular, right? Oh, so it was fun as long as your friends were here, and now again, you're being tested. This is a trial. So are you going to stick with it? Are you going to figure out what part of your ego or your pride or, whatever needs to be broken right now, and you've got all the, your coal being turned into a diamond, it's going to take pressure, and, the refiner's fire, and it's going to be heat, and none of that's uncomfortable, and, Christians are, living the problem with the living sacrifices that it can crawl off the altar, and, just all of these things. And so when your humanity rises up and is like, I don't want to do this, then you have to beat it down, right? That's the flesh. So you got to make your spirit stronger, and then you're not all that you can be. You haven't achieved whatever because you're not married yet. So, and you're going to find your husband here. He has to be here because you can't. Yeah. So he's probably just around the corner. And again, this is the test.
Yeah.
So if you're not there that Sunday, if you're not there for that service, that might be the time,
Oh, yeah.
that he walks through the door, right? And so you're working to find your husband. You're working to get whatever your dream position in the church is, right? There's always something that you haven't attained yet that you can chalk whatever discomfort, inconvenience, pain you're going through up to being the final boss, a test, a trial in the way of that thing.
Yeah. Wow.
I'm feeling this. Yeah. The spirit's moving. But no, for real. I get, wow.
No, it's just interesting hearing all this, and like, because I know like tie-ins to like stuff we were mentioning earlier, like with capitalism and work ethic and all of that, how like really it's like what you said a few minutes ago about like, how did you say it? Like even like the problem of not really having a story, and then it's like almost like you then had to like then at the end of the day dig deep and try harder, and it's almost like this. I don't know what the word, like almost like spiritual meritocracy. It's like just dig deep and try harder. Like, and if you're not getting it, you're not trying hard enough. And it's like it's always comes back to the individual as having some sort of moral failing if you don't make it work. And it's like, anyway, I guess I don't have a question in all that, but I am curious in light of just everything, like just some of this messaging. Like, I'm curious what your experience or what you observed. Like, how is this translated to people of color compared to like your white counterparts? Like, did you notice discrepancies in that? Like, what was that like?
Yeah, definitely notice discrepancies. And like, but not always. though, right? Because we're, on Bad Words right now. We're reading Redeeming Love. And, looking at that book and being like, it's so blatantly, obviously problematic for so many reasons, right? Just on a first read now, right? Did not see any of that the first time, read it when steeped in evangelicalism. And I think that's true of so many parts of evangelicalism. Right, looking back now, it's clear to be like, no, they were racist from jump, like from the top, always, but just didn't see it. Like, was not trained to look at things that way. And so when Hillsong NYC, like, it's problematic just from the fact that, like, none of you live in New York. None of you are from this place. And you decided that God needed you to come, not just from another state, from another country, to plant a church in this very diverse city. Like, you know nothing about the culture here, and you've been called to plant a church. And you, Carl Lentz from Virginia, like, I'm coming from California. I had no business trying to be a leader at a church. Like, this church had no business trying to exist in this city, right? And so, like, that's like blatant, that's like obvious now, but we didn't see any of that. And so, that's the mindset, right? This colonizing mindset. We have the answer. We know how to do church, and now we're gonna come show these savages how to do it.
Yeah.
Right. And
yeah.
we're gonna take over and be on top here. And so that was the spirit they had over the city, and that was the spirit they had over everyone in the church. And so, it takes a while, but it's kind of like once you see it, and again, you see these things, then you always have the choice. Am I going to lean into this, and am I going to look at this closer, or am I going to just spiritually bypass? Am I just going to deflect and say, no, that's not, that's not that. And I'm just going to go more granular. If I'm not rising in leadership, I'm not going to make it a race thing or a woman thing, right now. This is a me thing. So I've got to do this work. And then, colonization always tells on itself eventually. Like we're seeing it right now in the White House, right? It's like, these are the most unqualified, like, these are not just regular white men, these are the most unqualified, awful, terrible people. And so at some point I have to stop and say, well, wait a minute.
Yeah.
How bad do I have to be? What is wrong with me where this is what your God is picking, right? Like, God said, I need a leader for this country. He looked past everybody. He looked past the white men who have been in church serving faith. Like, he looked past all of that to say, no, this one. And so, like, when things like that happen, like, at some point, like, you have to have enough, build up enough self-confidence, enough audacity, enough whatever to be like, wait a minute, no. There are a lot of things that I will take on and say, okay, maybe I don't understand this. Maybe I'm not as spiritually in tune. But no, there are some things where I know I could do a better job than this. And so, the appeal and the allure of Carl Lentz and just his personality type and whatever. So he's very charismatic. And so there's a lot, you don't even think about it. You're just like, it just makes sense that he's up there. Like, look at him go. But then he starts platforming people who you're like, wait a minute, this guy is not good. He's not, I know I probably could do better than this, but I'm going to stay humble. And I'm going to say, I could do at least that well. And if they're willing to give him time, if they're willing to train him up, and he literally just got here, well, there are so many other people here who could have done this, who could be doing this, that they're not picking. So many women that they're not picking. So many black people that they're not picking. So many black women that they're not picking. So what is going on here? And then allowing myself to be like, no, I am part of some communities. It does matter to me that I am a woman. It does matter to me that I am a black person. I do think these people are good and okay. And, it's it's a much longer process and deeper conversation. But like ultimately it gets to the point where it's like, okay, no, you guys are actually saying and showing that there is something inherently wrong with being a woman and or inherently wrong with being black, because that's the only answer at this point. And then once you're trying to disprove that, right? Like, no, maybe not. You do your research, you start reading, you start looking closer at stuff, and then you're like, oh no, oh yeah, these systems don't like women. Oh, they don't like black people. They do think there is something inherently wrong with that. And yeah, okay, I disagree. So yeah, I gotta go. We can't find middle ground here.
Yeah. Oh man, I just thought of like 12 other conversations we could have based off of that answer. It's like, ooh, let me tell you what I've been researching lately. But for sake of this conversation, if you were to, kind of like overtly, if we start making some comparisons between ways that like evangelicalism borrows from capitalism in terms of like things like work ethic, salvation being earned, things like that, where do you see the crossover, especially from your time in this system that is demanding all of this of you? And now we're outside of that, but we're still in a system that demands all of this from us also.
Yeah, like evangelicalism to me is just spiritual capitalism. Like it's all about building empires, right? Building companies, building a business. It's all about numbers, getting people in, and telling them whatever you need to tell them to sell them what you're trying to sell them and to keep them, right? It's the original subscription model. Like you're going to keep coming here.
Yeah.
You're going to keep paying your tithe. And like it's an amazing scam because it's like you're not even getting anything, right? Like this is all based on this heaven, right? Like I'm selling you this timeshare for this place that you should trust me, bro, and you want to go there. I can't show it to you now. I can't even offer you, like, it would be different if I'm paying my tithes regularly and I never get sick and I never, have a car problem and I never, but like, no, you're going to experience all the regular life stuff. You've got this amazing God on your side. Is he going to do anything for you? Maybe, maybe not.
Yeah.
But no, that's on you. Again, get granular. You're not supposed to love him for what he can do for you. You're just supposed to love him because I don't even know why at this point. Like,
I know.
Like, it's just insane. But it's just this idea of everyone is trying to get some kind of security, some kind of assurance that I'm going to be taken care of, right? And in capitalism, it's very clear I'm going to this job that I hate because I need money, because I have to pay my rent, because I need somewhere to stay at the end of the day. So that's that. And with evangelicalism, I'm going to this place, I'm paying this rent because I'm going to need someplace to stay. When this is all over, there's only two options. This one says it's the better one, and I want to get in there. So, let me go. Like it's hard to kind of make sense of evangelicalism now. Like once, like I don't believe in heaven or hell anymore. And so kind of like once that's gone, it all falls apart so quick. And then it's hard to even like tap into, what was I even afraid? Why was I doing this? Why did I give all this time, all this energy, all this money to this thing that was giving me nothing?
Yeah. It was just taking more constantly. Yeah. Never not taking.
So like on the other side of that, like, so these themes of like, evangelicalism being like spiritual capitalism and just and then just in light of all of that though, so in like deconstruction spaces, post-religious spaces, I'm just curious, where do you see like some of these same patterns showing up or if you, assuming you do. I suppose I shouldn't assume that you do. That was a loaded question, but yeah. First of all, do you see that showing up? And if so, I'm just curious what you notice.
I do. You know what? The thing with capitalism, the thing with evangelicalism, they are both built for stagnation, right? And this idea of forever. Like in capitalism, like the idea is, I have an idea, I'm going to sell you something. We're supposed to have ideas. We're supposed to be, looking out for each other and doing whatever. But like, if I invent something and it's good for now, it's not supposed to last forever. Like, we're supposed to be okay with things being useful for the time that they're useful, and then letting people evolve, letting systems evolve, letting things, go. But like in evangelicalism, we're so worried about eternity and forever. And like things, we pick quantity over quality. We pick longevity over like life, right? Like, you're just trying to be here the longest. You're just trying to have the most. Doesn't matter if the most is good. Doesn't matter if the long time that you're here is a good time, right? You're just trying to hang on. You're trying to get married. You're trying to be married to one person. It's supposed to last forever. Doesn't last forever. It's a failure. And so like getting outside of that now in deconstruction, we're seeing kind of the same things. And, people feeling like, I didn't get it in evangelicalism. I didn't get the platform. I didn't get the attention. I didn't get, whatever. And that's fair. And that is a true thing and something we all have to work out to some extent. But then feeling like, well, now I'm entitled to it here. And now I have this crowd, and now I'm going to say whatever it takes. I'm going to be whoever I need to be to maintain this crowd. Doesn't matter that a lot of these people are coming out of these spaces and they have been tuned and primed to listen to the straight white male voice. And so, now I'm going to step into this space, and I'm not going to acknowledge at all the ways that this is also not a meritocracy, right? Like, these people are coming in with the same sickness that we had over there. But instead of encouraging them to get rid of that sickness, to no, you need to decolonize. I don't want you to decolonize because I want you to listen to me. So that's not going to be part of my shtick. So I'm just going to talk about, whatever. And so the problem I see in deconstruction is, like, again, we're not growing. We're not changing. We're just doing the same old thing, but now we're just putting a new face on it. And then, for me, like, personally, I'm like, wait, this is becoming, people are approaching me and speaking to me and being disappointed. You're not using your platform the way I thought you would, or the way I thought. Wait a minute. I don't work for you. I am just a person out here, doing whatever. But social capital is also capital, right? And people really think that their follow or whatever gives them some kind of say-so, right? And, people, if I have an issue with whoever about whatever, and like people have this, they've kind of like brought the old church mentalities in, which understandable. But like I've had struggles because I have felt bad because I'm like, there's some people I just don't like in this space. And I don't know why I'm pretending that I do. I don't know why. Who am I trying to protect when I'm like like it feels like, oh, we're all working for this church again, and now we all have to pretend to get along. And so like I've struggled for the past 2 years, especially being like, I know some stuff about some people behind the scenes. And like some of it is egregious, some of it is not, some of it is just regular. Like these are just regular dum-dums. And here's a list of reasons why you probably shouldn't listen to this person. But I can't say that because I wouldn't be a good coworker at that point. Right. And feeling like I feel like I'm back in evangelicalism because I am covering up for people. I am not telling the truth all the time about certain people and certain things. And sometimes like it's not even, oh, that I know this secret about this person, but I see how you're moving and I think that's ridiculous. I think that's wrong. And I wish this was a space where I could publicly say, hey, stop collecting money like that. Hey, I don't like, we shouldn't be doing this. We should be having these conversations about like, you know what this looks like, you know what this feels like, because I could be wrong. But like we should be able to have these conversations in public, but we can't because we have built the system the same way we had the old one. And now we have, you know, I had like with bad words, like with my patrons, we talk about it. So we have like Zoom meetings, you know, and talk about it. And so a couple of weeks ago, some of the people tapped in from, it was an event. So there are a few, you know, people at this event. So a few of them, you know, just hopped on and just said hi and whatever. And so some of the people, the regular people, right, of a Patreon were like, oh my gosh, like, you know, so-and-so. I'm like, these are just, oh no. Like, we're just people. We're just people. We're not pastors. We're not, and even pastors should have never been like celebrity. Like, we're just people. And oh no, I have been part of building this thing where people see me as different. Like they think I'm something more or something like I'm not. Like I'm just a regular person. And I can say that 1,000 times a day. I know you guys don't believe it. Like, and so like, that's part of the reason why I'm like, I have to get out of here. Cause I can't, I don't think I can fix this thing from the inside.
Yeah.
Like I can't keep feeding quarters into this machine and expecting it to be different. Like trying to, you know, use the claw to grab that thing. There's only one of those in there. There's 500 of the other thing in there. So I'm probably going to grab that, you know, the most. And so yeah, like we have built the evangelical church, right? And so now we have new leaders and new celebrities and a new platform, and now we're all playing by these same old rules again of just being polite. You know, and people sometimes, you know, like my question is like, if you think I have to be nicer to so and so because you guys work together, you're on the same team. Like, no, why do you think that? And then if you do think that, who do you think our boss is? Who do you think is the boss? And if it's just the two of us, you think that's my boss. You think I'm supposed to kowtow to him or or be respectful to him. I'm like, no, with all due disrespect, we're clowns. We're all clowns. I too am a clown, but these people are clowns. And we need to, I just wish we could be more honest and, you know, serious about that.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen that for a long time. I mean, probably because I kind of entered into this space, you know, 2018, 2019, and started noticing those exact dynamics that you're talking about. And could even recognize where I kind of fell into it too, where I was like, oh, I want to be able to like have conversations with these people because they seem to be leading the charge and whatever. And then quickly realize like, actually, no, like that's not what I want. But it causes then so much disruption because when you come out of like a high control religion, like you can cognitively move away from it. Like, I don't believe these things anymore. But unless you address how that lives in your body, so like what you're talking about with like decolonizing, or I call it embodied fundamentalism, like unless you are addressing it on that embodied level, you will recreate all of the same patterns and dynamics, just with a different kind of message of salvation, essentially. And I think that happens in the post religious spaces also. And like there's certain times where I'm like, I get it. I get why it would be easier to have your pastor leader figure. Like, there's days that I have where I'm like, I just want to be able to quote unquote tell on somebody and have the person in charge do something about it. And then I'm like, wait, no, but I'm in charge, not of other people, of myself. Like, I have to be the one to make the decision here. And that's not a particularly comfortable spot to sit in because for a variety of reasons, right? There's uncertainty, there's risk. You might make people upset. Like you could, lose things because of it. And yet that's what part of being a human is. But I think people don't want to take that risk. And so then we end up just in another system that is recreated all of the same dynamics that we all have tried to escape. And it's sad. And then it's really hard to want to get out of that and realize then I either have to, like in your case, leave the space entirely because again, it feels like I can't produce change like in this how it is, like you guys have to essentially kill off your own, to try to actually dissolve what's happening here.
Yeah. Yeah. Because this is all taking place under actual factual capitalism also, right?
That too.
So you also have, people, and I get it. I don't want to work a 9 to 5, right? Currently I don't, right? Because I'm lucky. I'm very lucky. And so that I don't have to do that right now. I also am lucky in the sense so I don't have to grift online, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't have to, this is not profitable for me at all to be here, right? And so like, thank God, because I can walk away. Yeah. I can leave and my life not really be affected. But a lot of people have come into the space and I get it. Capitalism sucks. Capitalism is sin. We're not living the way we're supposed to be living, right? And so I understand that you came from a cushy job, right? If you are a white man in evangelicals, if you were a pastor, like I understand Carl Lentz. You have never worked a real job. You were getting paid an obscene amount of money to boss people around and be a dick. And and now you've left and I want you to go get a regular job. And you don't want to do that. And I understand why you don't want to do that. But there are a lot of people in evangelicalism who are living that Carl Lentz lifestyle, right? They're like, I got used to doing this very easy thing. And now you want me to go work in an office? You want me to go be a regular person amongst regular people and not have this attention, not be getting pats on the back for saying very simple and obvious things, right? You want me to just go out there and do work? I don't want to do that. I'm not built for that. I understand. Yeah, you've never done it before. But now you've come into this space and you're used to grifting. We were all raised to be grifters.
Yeah.
So you're used to grifting and that's what you're doing. And you feel entitled to people's time, to people's attention, to people's money. And again, I get it because we have to survive. You have rent to pay. And who wouldn't? Who's among us hasn't wanted to choose the easiest option? Right. So like we have a lot of that where we have people who never worked a real job, who don't really have the life skills that it takes to survive under capitalism. And so it's annoying, but I understand it. They're coming in and they're doing the thing that they know how to do, and they're doing the thing that is easy. And to be honest, like we all gave so much to evangelicalism. We are owed a lot, but I'm not owed it from you, and Andrew don't owe me money, right? Like you didn't do it to me.
Yeah.
Like the people who there should be a class action lawsuit. We should have our at least therapy bills being paid by someone else. The people who should be paying for that, the systems who should be paying for that are not, and they're not going to. And so there's so many people in evangelicalism trying to extract these real needs, trying to get real payback that they are actually owed, but it's from the wrong people. And so then we're just kind of re-victimizing the same people again, but trying to take what is owed.
Ooh, that's good. Yeah. That's really really wise. Yeah, just we're demanding the right thing from the wrong people. Yeah, that's a good way to say it.
Yeah.
It's like, how many white guys are going to go start another podcast in this space? Or like, I'm trying to be careful how I say this, because like it's funny, because like I'm not trying to throw shade at any particular person, but like I don't know, like pastors and spiritual leaders and directors, and I don't even know all the terms I've seen thrown around, but it's just like, I don't know we need any more of that. We don't need any more of that. And of course, here I am on a podcast, but it's funny. I went through a phase of like, within the first year of me being in the space, doing the typical white guy thing of like, oh, I can make a podcast. That'd be so interesting. And then thank God, I forgot who it was. Someone talked me out of it. Like, yeah, you don't need to do that. And so it wasn't until Laura, you approached me like, would you want, like, I'm co-hosting it with you, but like, I don't need to be solo doing a podcast. And
well, that's why I knew you were actually a good choice to be a co-host, because you're like, do we really need another white guy who's on a podcast? I was like, okay, then you're actually probably the right person, because you recognize like my voice doesn't need to be central. We need to like amplify the voice of our guests, and you are recognizing like the privilege that you had. And I was like, okay, then yes, you like, please be my co-host like for this podcast, because I think when you can recognize that you're for anyway, not just you, anybody, like that's where the real work actually is. That's where it's like, oh, you are actually disembodying the fundamentalism, the patriarchy, the colonization methods that have been used, and you're actually doing the work, to disembody that. And I think that's what healing really calls us to do. It sounds very Christian. Calls us to do.
It's the work. It's the work of sanctification. or something. No, yeah. I mean, actually, on that,
in so many ways, like I think evangelicalism just becomes a reaction to evangelicalism, and so like we swing to the other side, and so where evangelicalism, it's like we're only gonna have white men, and we're only gonna listen to them, and the evangelicalism, we're not gonna listen to them at all for anything, right? And that's what we say, but we don't really mean it, because as soon as the straight white man, ex-pastor comes in, they flock to him, right? And so it's like we do need white men in this space, straight white men using their voice and using their privilege, but we need them to be aware of that and to be like using it on purpose.
Yeah,
like
that's a good way to say it.
Like I'll have white men, approach and say, I'm not gonna start a podcast because I know whatever. And like there's sometimes there's like a sense of like there's nothing wrong with being a straight white man. Like that, we can't swing to that other extreme where that is now you're automatic villain, automatic sinner, like no redemption, like whatever. Like no, like there are good straight white men, right? I would wager that most of them are decent, right? Like this is not, there is no identity that is just off the bat wrong all the time. So like that is a fine identity. And honestly, for such a time as this, right? We need straight white men who are aware of who they are and the privilege that they hold, and to be using that strategically to fight these things. So like sometimes, people just have expectations and they think whatever, and people don't know how to recognize nuance. All right. So if I'm talking about this one particular person who carries these identities that I do not like, that does not automatically translate to, then I don't understand your friendship with so-and-so because he is also a straight. You don't understand, because you're being racist right now, frankly. Like you are just looking at one identity and just saying, oh, paint them all with the same brush. It's like, no, I don't have an issue with white men. Some of my favorite people, best friends, are white men. Like I have a lot of white friends. It's fine. Like it's that's not the issue. It's like, what are they doing with their privilege? Are they aware of it? And like we have to be able to differentiate. And so yes, we're always going to need straight white men in these spaces, because you know what? When I came out of evangelicalism, for sure, and when I was like, oh, I think I am deconstructing or whatever, some of the first voices that I were listening to were straight white men. Why? Because those are the voices that I recognized.
Sure.
And that was that was who I knew to look to for authority, right? And for a time, I needed that. I needed the confirmation of straight white men to feel like I was on the right track, or that it was at least okay that I was over here. And so it's like, we need them in this space, because people need that. And I think we're not being fair when we expect people to come out and just like have all the answers that we have and to know all the things and like whatever. Like, people are on their journey. So like, even the people I don't like who are in this space, and I personally am like,
Yeah.
you know what? If that is who you're listening to, if that is what you need right now, that's fine. I'm not even saying like, don't ever listen to him. I'm saying, when you're ready, there are other voices.
These other people,
There's all these other voices. And I am hard on some people, or, say certain things, not because I'm, trying to I can't destroy their platform. They're going to be there. But so that someday somebody's going to wake up a little bit more, and then be like, you know what? I'm a little bit tired of this, or I just want something else. And if we're all being nice and we're all playing the polite game and we're all the same and all that, how are they going to recognize the door out? How are they going to like recognize an exit? So some of the stuff that I say is just so that when you're ready, if you're ever ready, there is an exit. There is an option over here. And if you never want to take it, if you want to stay there forever, then you know what? You were never supposed to be in my room anyway.
Yeah.
And that's fine. So, sit there. And if, you need a white man, it'd be cooler if you didn't, right? But if you need one,
we've got
that's
some.
the one you're choosing. Yeah. Here are some other options. Right?
Yeah.
Here, but again, if that's where you are right now, that's probably where you need to be.
I feel like
And
that's generous. Because, I really appreciate what you said about, like, when we're trained to listen to certain voices, when we leave a system like that, again, that too doesn't just go out the window. We literally don't even know how to look for other voices. So I can really appreciate that perspective. It feels very like compassionate to where the person is at. And then also with what you're saying, and then the hope is that you will expand even beyond that, that's kind of like the next stepping stone. And I feel like that's a very generous way to frame all of it. Yeah.
I'm kind of just curious to hear, just in light of all of this, just what are some ways that you would suggest being able to recognize some of these patterns showing up in yourself, and I guess what to do about it? To put it very bluntly,
be our guru.
Yeah, to be our deconstruction expert today.
You're the pastor of deconstruction today.
Tell us how to heal. Tell us how to heal these things.
I wish I could, right? Like I wish I knew, but that was the allure, the appeal of evangelicalism, right? The certainty. Here's the way. Here's do this, think this, whatever. I don't know. Like I think everything that I believe in, everything that I'm trying to do, to focus on now is like to get smaller and to come in closer. Like I believe community is our answer, is our way out, and we have to find ourselves. Like I wish I could say, like, I just want to be able to tell people like listen to yourself, trust your intuition, right? But I know that we are dealing with a population of people who don't know how to do that. Like they wouldn't even know, even if they hear us say that, feel like they have the permission, want to do that, they literally don't know how. And so it's like the only way you really are going to learn that is through community. And so, you like what you like. You feel comfortable with who you feel comfortable with. And so like, it really is like, find the voice that works for you for right now. And even if it is, whatever character, if it's somebody who I don't like, would not listen to, like whatever, that's fine. Again, everyone in this space is here for someone. What I will say is keep checking back in with yourself, right? Like if 3 months from now, this is the only voice you've listened to and it's still the only voice you're listening to, that might be a problem. Like, don't judge yourself by anyone else. Like, judge yourself by yourself. Like, this will also help you start learning to, listen to your intuition. Like, just have check-ins with yourself, because it's not an overnight process. You're not going to decide today, do a 10-day fast, right? And then have this new habit, this new mindset, whatever. Like, if you have left evangelicalism or thinking of leaving, like, that's huge, right? Like, we sometimes forget we are actual miracles. Like, the system is set up for this to never happen. We are not supposed to be here right now. And so the fact that we are, like, that's such a big deal. But I think we breeze past that, partly because we have been taught to not like ourselves and to not celebrate our wins and, whatever. But, like, if you have moved out of evangelicalism, again, even if you are in what I would consider, a pre-K course with, whatever random clown you have attached yourself to, that's where you need to be right now. That is what your comfort level is, and there's actually nothing wrong with that. So be there, take it in, take it for all it's worth. But again, just check in with yourself. 3 months from now, 6 months from now, a year from now, are you still here? Because, and especially if that person is not growing, if they're not saying new things, then you might want to check in on that. But also you might not want to, right? If you've been there for a year and it's still working for you, then it's still working for you. Like, I think people deconstruct because we all there's a chink in that armor, right? Like, evangelicalism is not natural. No one is born into it, with it. Like, it's not a natural part of you. That is something that was put on you, something that was given to you. So there's a chink in that armor somewhere. I don't know what yours is. I can't possibly know. You don't know what anyone else's is. But, like, that thing got to you at some point and you moved on, you moved out. And so, like, that's still in you. And so, like, there's no timeline. I can't give you anything. But again, be where you are and just kind of be aware. But also, right, again, we're still under capitalism. Life is still happening. Part of the reason, like, I'm leaving the deconstruction space, because, like, I want to see the world without this lens for a while again, right? Like, to not, like, sometimes things happen in this community and then you go talk to your real friends and then you realize, like, oh, I'm in a cult again. Nobody knows about, and this thing and my social media is exploding and my profile is in danger and, whatever. And then you go outside and your friends are like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Who are these people? Right? And you're like, oh, I built this whole universe around people who really don't matter. Like, this isn't.
They're not real.
This is not a
like,
real
I mean,
world.
they're
not real.
They're real people, but not to us as individuals when they're only across, the keyboard. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's like, find your real community.
Yeah.
Dig into that. And you can find real community within this community. Right. But again, who are the voices you're listening to? Why do you like them? Right. And maybe just ask yourself those questions every once in a while. Why do I like this person? Why do I get upset when this person says this thing about this person that I really like? Who else am I listening to? How long have I been listening to this person, and are they saying anything new? And if they're not, am I hungry for that? Do I notice that? Where can I find, whatever? So again, it's like, be where you are. Just check in with yourself and trust yourself. Because like I said, you left.
Yeah.
You've left. You've moved on. You've grown before.
Yeah.
And you'll do it again.
I mean, I think that was a great pastoral answer from the voice of John. No, but I think the reason I just want to clap for it is because it's really pointing back to you as the individual. Like, you do not need somebody to be dictating this to you or prescribing it. That's what our entire lives have been, and sometimes still are to an extent, in a capitalistic, patriarchal, oppressive society, right? And so, like, where are the spaces where you can actually tune into yourself for choice? And, like, that's so powerful. I think that's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this has been an amazing conversation. And you've alluded to it a couple times that you are leaving social media. Lucky duck. I'm so excited for you. But if people do want to connect with you, follow your work, where can they still find you and support you?
So yeah, come on over to janicelagata.com. Yeah, my website will still be up, and then from there it'll be links to my Substack, to my music, to whatever I'm doing and working on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And your podcast, which I just love, your Bad Words podcast.
Yeah. So like everything will continue.
Mm-hmm.
I just won't
not
be,
social media.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, and shameless plug, if you have not been listening to this season of Bad Words, please go do so, especially if you grew up socialized female in the church and read Redeeming Love. You will not be disappointed. It was so good. I mean, so bad, so good. It's a great season. Well, thank you, Janice, so much for being here. It's awesome to have you. All of your links will be in the show notes so people can connect with you. But thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome.
Anytime.
Thank you once again to Janice Lagata for joining us. Such a good conversation. Yeah, gosh, there were so many other directions that I wanted to ask questions, but I really appreciate Janice sharing her story, but also just such a good conversation. And I feel like these are things that we should be talking about, in terms of capitalism, work ethic, how this plays into our current, social media spaces, life, things like that. Yeah. Andrew, what did you think?
Yeah. Oh, same. I mean, as far as like, there's so many, I don't know, I feel like we could just talk for hours, honestly, about so many things. Honestly, I think one of the biggest threads that I think is just really important and relevant these days is just seeing even the ties from evangelicalism into the post-religious spaces, whether you identify with the, the quote deconstruction community or not, but post-religious spaces in general. I think there's still a lot of the same programming that kind of carries over, and just being able to notice that, being able to name that, and being able to then just recentering yourself, that being such a thing that's like so important, I think. Anyway, yeah.
I appreciated what she said at the end when we were like, so what, kind of what do you do or whatever. And that idea of it feels so freeing and also terrifying at the same time to like essentially be the boss of yourself. And like, you have to be the one who is not only dictating your path, but then also like checking in with yourself and going, okay, where's the room that I can, grow and stretch? Where am I stagnant? Where do I need to like push myself, or challenge myself? And, I think that like that is so important. And that's why we all left, was to be able to have the freedom to do that. And I would venture to say that most of us did not leave so that we could recreate this system somewhere else, and yet it's so easy to do that when that's all and, and you're coming out into this like social media space that is a quote unquote community where everybody's doing that again. Everybody is, engaging in essentially church dynamics, just with the different message. And I really, I think part of the reason I love being a coach and a therapist is because the whole goal of that is to let people come back home to their inherent goodness, to make choices for themselves, to not have to be beholden to systems and other people's rules. And I appreciate any message that kind of aligns with that. Like, you get to be the one to determine what that looks like for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's just what's so important and so needed. Mm-hmm. So, I'm here for it.
Yeah. I'm curious to know, as we kind of close out, like when if you're working with clients or just having conversations with friends, acquaintances, colleagues, things like that, kind of noticing this dynamic, especially like post-religion in some of these deconstruction, post-religious spaces, noticing some of the dynamics. What are some of the things that you kind of talk to people about in terms of like course correcting, and maybe not like the whole like deconstruction quote unquote movement, but just even on an individual level? Where do you kind of go with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that I really go back to is learning to trust yourself and listening to yourself. And of course, and of course I do like parts work, like I've always been telling people. And
Yeah.
so a lot of that has to do with like this idea of like your core self, and like being curious about and noticing like, like what are your values? What do you care about? What is fulfilling for you? And it takes time when you're coming out of a system like evangelicalism, because we were so programmed to like, your happiness doesn't matter. Your peace, like it's all about serving something greater than yourself. It's not about you. And so learning to then realize it is okay for it to, in fact, be about you, beginning, middle, and end, full stop. It's about you, and that's okay. That doesn't mean you're wrong or bad or harmful. I think that's a big piece. And then like, even then, what are you supposed to do from here? Where do you go from here? Like, I can't tell you. But that's what's so important. Like, I can't tell you. I won't tell you. I won't try to tell you. But somewhere in there, I think you have that inherent wisdom and goodness to figure it out. Maybe not today, maybe not even tomorrow. It's a process. I get it. And that's okay. Just be patient with yourself, be compassionate with yourself. But I do think that you, at the end of the day, know what it is that you need. I mean, and that's not I don't mean that to be like some sort of spiritual riddle to just piss people off. Because, I mean, it sometimes does piss people off. But, you need to be doing things because it's what you feel led and compelled to do, rather than because I'm in some place, you perceive me as being in a place of authority or wisdom, and I'm telling you, oh, that's what you should do. I can't tell you what you should do. I have no idea.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is so nice. I don't want to tell people what to do. I spent too many years of my life doing that, like where we were supposed to do that. And it's a lot of pressure to do that. And it puts you in this like place of superiority that really isn't yours to be in. And so, yeah, I love that answer of like, it is, it is about learning to trust yourself. And that doesn't happen overnight. It happens in like small moments, of intentionality, and it takes time to do that. And you're going to make mistakes, right? And there's things where it's like, I'm trusting myself. And then you look back 6 months and you're like, ooh, yeah, I would make a different decision today, or I would do something, or say something different. But like, that is also part of learning to trust yourself too. And trusting, your own journey is then grappling with mistakes and grappling with, needing to course correct or make amends or things like that. And being able to exhibit a level of humility, just like humanity and humility of like, yeah, I'm just figuring this out, and I'll, keep moving forward. And sometimes that means making amends and apologies and taking ownership. And also there's a lot of really cool things that go with it, and being able to celebrate and actually live the life that we have here on this earth. So that's why I do this work, with people. Like, that's why I love to do this, is to be able to help support them, on that piece of it, rather than telling them what to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, this has been another wonderful episode. And I think with that, all God's people said, Amen.
Amen.